Okay, and in fact, we're going to start right here by installing a Thesis Classic skin modifications. Now, you know, I haven't really talked about skin modifications yet, have I? But in fact, Thesis allows for the possibility of a skin modification. And the skin modification is a set of skin data or skin settings for an existing skin. So notice how this says I can manage the skin, and it's the Thesis Classic skin, right? I can import skin data for the Thesis Classic skin. I couldn't, inside of the Thesis Classic skin, import skin data, say, for agility, right? And I can't import Thesis Classic skin data into agility. But I can import skin data from one version of Thesis Classic into another. And the reason why that's important, let's see, let's go over to DIY themes for a second. Log back in. I'm back over to downloads and skins. Longtime users of Thesis will know that Thesis had 6 different layout options, right? It had a 1-column layout, it had a 2-column layout where the content was on the left and the sidebar was on the right. It had a 2-column layout in the reverse. It had a 3-column layout where the content was on the left and then there were 2 sidebars on the right, and that was the Thesis 1 default. Then it had a 3-column layout where the content was in the middle and the sidebar was on either side, and then it had the 3-column layout where the content was on the right and the 2 sidebars were on the left. And those were the 6 different layout abilities. And you can download these and change this default layout to one of those other layouts simply by importing the skin modification. Now, to download those, what you're going to do is click on this button. And notice it's downloaded this file called Classic Basic Zip. And I'm just going to leave that alone for just a second. I'll come back to that here in a second. I also have a set of skin modifications that are available to both the general public and to members. If we come over to the skins for the Thesis Theme 2.0 and scroll down here, you'll see I've got this section called Thesis Classic Skin Modifications. Now, the free Thesis Classic skin versions actually has 11 different versions. It has the 5, well, it has 5 of the 6 versions that we saw on DIY themes, slightly modified. I've made a couple of minor modifications to them, so they're not exactly the same as DIYs, but they're essentially the same. It doesn't have 6 because one of them is the default, and so the default automatically exists in Thesis, so there's no reason for you to download the default version. But then I also have full width framework versions of these, and this is currently the only set of full width framework versions of the Thesis Classic skin. Now, former Thesis 1 users are familiar with the full width framework, and so this has all 6 versions of the Thesis Classic in its full width framework layout. So these are the original page layouts, these are the full width framework versions, and everybody is welcome to download these. These are free to the general public. All you have to do is go to the site and download it. And members of mine also have access to my responsive versions of these. So I have exactly the same 12 configurations, that is the page width configurations and the full width framework configurations, but in a responsive version. And so these are all different things that can be downloaded and added to the Thesis Classic skin. And in fact, we're going to download, let's see, we're going to download the full width framework with the content column on the left. I'm going to download that right now. Whoops. I'm going to follow my own directions. Right click on it. Save link as. And then I'm just going to save it again in my documents, my business website downloads. Save it there. And now that I'm here, I'm going to take this Thesis Classic thing that we just downloaded and I'm going to move it there too. So cut that out. documents, my business website, downloads, and paste it there. Okay, and so the other thing I'm going to do is just unzip this Thesis Classic Basic, because you actually have to unzip this file. This is the only thesis related file you're ever going to unzip. Okay, so you don't unzip the thesis. You're not going to unzip agility. But you do need to unzip this one, because it's got each of these little text files in it, and this is the skin data file. So now here we are in our page, and I'm going to come over to the dashboard and to the skin editor, and I'm going to go to the skin manager now, and I'm going to import skin data. And this is how you add a skin modification. Now you need to sort of try and keep these things separated in your mind, right? This is not the way you add a skin to a site. This is the way you add skin data to an existing skin. Okay, so we're going to choose the file. We're going to come over here to our Thesis Classic mod, and we'll just take this Thesis Classic 3 column. We'll import that. And now you can see that it's reflected in our canvas, and we've got 2 columns now here, and the content column here on the right hand side. Right? This is what happens when you import skin modification information. Now if we come over and take a look at our main page layout, you can see the main page layout has this container, and then inside the container it's got the menu, a header, columns, and footer. Well, now I'm going to install a full width framework skin mod that's going to completely change this. So let's come over here to the manager. I'm going to create a new backup, and I'm going to call this the 3 column. And what it's going to do is save the current state of the skin. Okay, it's now been saved. The current state of the skin is here. Now I'm going to import some new skin data. Whoops, not yet. I need to choose the file. And now I'm going to import the one that I downloaded from my site, this Thesis Classic one here. Open it up, import that data. Notice how this is different now. Notice there's no container anymore, right? This has got a header area, a content area, and a footer area, and the header area has a header area page inside of it, and now it's got a nav menu and a header. This is the way the full width framework was laid out, and this is what it looks like now, right? So we're back to a 2 column layout. And the one last thing we can do in this manager here is to restore our default. Well, let's just create a new backup. Let's call it 2 column full width. And we'll add that. So now we have 2 different backups so that we can switch back and forth in between. And we can also just restore the Thesis default skin data. And now we are here back to Thesis default, and if we look at our home, now we're back to our container, which has the nav menu, header, and columns in it, just like that. Okay, so this is the way in which you switch between different versions of Thesis Classic's skin data, or a skin modification. Now, I wanted to introduce you to that because I wanted you to see how this stuff works, but we're not actually doing this in this class. In this class, we're not working in the Thesis Classic skin. What we are working in is in the Agility Nude skin.